All right, welcome into Before Floor, an extension of 5 on the Floor here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can find me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at 5 Reasons Sports. We are here at FTX Arena, Alejandro and I, our producer Alejandro Villegas. We are sponsored by Biscayne Bay Brewing. You can also find that at FTX Arena in the 100 level and the 300 level. Check out the kiosks. It is always busy. They got the Tropical Bay IPA there. You can also get the great beers of Biscayne Bay Brewing Company at many local supermarkets, including Winn-Dixie, Publix, and Whole Foods, as well as many local restaurants like Quarterdeck. You can see some of the beers that they offer. Check them out, the official beer of the 5 Reasons Sports Network and of the Miami Marlins. Also the official local brewery of the Miami Heat. All right, let's check out another of our sponsors, Mark Brown. You can find him at markbrownpa.com, the man with the plan, big Heat fan. More importantly, he's a fan of making a plan. He can get you ready with an estate plan. If you're young with a family, you definitely want to visit with Mark. He can help you out, get you all set up, make sure all the right people are getting what you have earned. 954-566-5678. 954-566-5678. Again, that's Mark Brown, M-A-R-C, brownpa.com. All right, the Heat are playing the Cavaliers tonight. We'll start here. There is some news on both sides. Brady, who's in, who's out?
Yeah, Jimmy Butler's sinus congestion seems to have cleared up because he's going to play tonight on the first end of a back-to-back. Caleb Martin said that he came up to him in the shoot-around today and was basically telling him he wanted to go tonight and try to warm up and play, and Spo just straight up told him no. That it's good to see. It's a great progression to see him get to this point, but they're not just inserting him right back in. And on the other side, the only difference is no Jared Allen, which they've been without for a little bit. But it's interesting because the first two games around against Cleveland, He'd have been without both Jimmy and Bam. So now we get to see how these two match up with Cleveland.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons as we go to our other panelists here. We got Tony Schwartz, who follow him at Tony Schwartz NBA, and also Ricky J. Mark and Greg Sylvander. That's one of the reasons, Tony, that I thought that too much has been made of this whole Cleveland thing. I mean, I get it that they've got size, although they don't have all of it tonight without Allen. But, I mean, the Heat's two primary max players weren't playing in either of those two games. I'm going to get to some seeding stuff in a second, but, how serious is the threat is this Cleveland team?
I mean, even if they're so young in a playoff setting, we kind of know what we probably would have got out of them. The problem with Cleveland is the same thing that, the narrative that took over earlier in the season, which Miami just has issues with length and Cleveland's long. But when you have Jimmy and Bam back into a lineup against these kind of guys, they're just too young. The IQ of those two basketball players, the ability to bang on the inside and wear those guys down. I don't know where they finish, but to me, the 5 teams that you're looking at now include Boston and Milwaukee and 76ers. Cleveland's not on that radar for me.
Ricky, I was having a conversation with a longtime Miami Heat beat writer. You can probably figure out who it is. And a discussion that we were having tonight was the idea that, essentially it might benefit the Heat to slide down to 3. If as the season moves on, if you don't want to have to deal with a likely 8 seed in Brooklyn and you want to play the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round, is there any case that can be made for the idea that you would lock yourself into a matchup with perhaps Cleveland in the first round instead of Brooklyn, even if that means maybe having to travel to Milwaukee or Philadelphia in round 2?
I'm sorry. This is a wacky contradiction from quote unquote cocky Heat fan that thinks they can beat everyone, but is worried about sliding down or playing a certain team in the first round. Hold on. If you're a championship team, anybody can get this smoke. This is the energy that I've gotten from Heat fans on and off Twitter. So it's like, no, if you are the best team, if you're not the number 1 seed, that rhetoric of, they're not covering us properly. Well, why wouldn't they? You're not the number 1 seed. Go for the number 1 seed, secure home court advantage at least through the first 3 rounds of the playoffs, and let the chips fall where they may. I mean, do we not believe in our home court advantage? Do we not believe in our Heat Nation to will this Heat team to a win? I mean, if that's the case, then what is it like a day-by-day rhetorical theme that we're going with? Go for the number 1 seed. Let the chips fall where they may. Play Brooklyn if you have to. And if they are supposedly the frauds that so many people claim they are, it should be short. It should be a short 6-game work, at least out of respect for KD. you run through them in the first round, and then you go play whoever is waiting for you in the second. And then in the Eastern Conference Finals, you beat whoever is there too, go to the NBA Finals, win the championship. That's the theme, right? I mean, that's what I'm hearing. I've got my own, what I'd like to think are reasonable expectations for this team in terms of their ceiling. But it starts with doing the best you possibly can to ensure that you get the top seed and you put yourself in the best possible position to win this thing. Miami has had their destiny in their hands ever since LeBron James left this franchise, outside of when Chris Bosh unfortunately went down. Take advantage, get the number 1 seed, and roll the ball out. Let's win this thing.
All right, well, Greg, to that point, I feel like most Heat fans would agree with that. But to something Ricky said early on, does it change day to day? It does. We have seen that Heat fans have become accustomed to treating this like the NFL, where one game all of a sudden flips everything that you think about the team, even though NFL games are worth 5 times as much, even with 17 now, as NBA games are. But again, getting back to it, I mean, I think when you look at the Eastern Conference, there are teams that we didn't think would be the biggest challenges that may be now. I mean, I don't know necessarily that Boston it looks like a soft out for this team. They don't look like a soft out for anybody, but particularly for this team at this stage. So we had a conversation on 5 on the Floor whether or not the Heat would be a soft number 1 seed. That we have seen those. The Big Three played a couple of those and beat a couple of those. But do you generally agree with Ricky on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the 1 seed is what you go for. You don't overthink that. And I don't think that the Heat are running from anybody. And from the fans' perspective, I almost think like we need to put in perspective that if the regular season games are making us feel this way, that means that the team actually matters again. Like, remember that first year of the Big Three when every regular season game felt like an NFL game? Like, the fact that we're even discussing it in those terms, relatively speaking, I think that speaks to how good of a season it is. So, like, what are we really like getting upset about? I ultimately think that the teams that are threats now, they may not be threats in 3.5 weeks. So, like, there's also that element of this where you see ups and downs and stuff like that. So, there's still there's basketball to be played, y'all.
Well, I think, Brady, it looks likely that Cleveland's going to be the 6. I don't, you look at Toronto, I don't see them really jumping up. You look at Brooklyn, they've got a lot of home games coming up, which is actually a bad thing because Kyrie's not going to play in most of them, right? I mean, unless that law is changed. And so as a result of that, I think probably that the highest Brooklyn gets is 7. And then obviously, and then they would host, if that's the case, they would host the play-in game in which they might not have Kyrie, which means they could lose that game and end up in the 8. So there's a lot of stuff that could happen here. But let's tweak this to tonight a little bit. Let's take a look at this matchup. Garland has been tremendous. There's no question about that. Who deals with him the most tonight?
PJ, I think, gets the matchup, but I think Bam's the one that deals with him probably the most. They may have to fix that a little bit because as we saw the last game, how the size gave them a little bit of trouble down low. They may not be able to go to that switchy in-action scheme because do you want PJ having to deal with Mobley who can kind of get the ball up over the top of him pretty much whenever he wants down there? So that's going to be an interesting factor. I'm interested to see because this, with no Jared Allen, it kind of shifts the way they're going to defend because they're not probably going to go to drop maybe as much. They're probably going to switch a lot. So that kind of falls in possibly Jimmy's favor because this isn't one of those Cleveland games where he's going to have to try to get to the rim over just a wall of Cleveland defenders. He could probably get a type of, a Darius Garland on him, or I think Dean Wade's the starter now, so get a Dean Wade on him down low. Like, he can find these mismatches if they're switching, so that's kind of what I'm looking at. But I think ultimately, we're going to see a lot of Bam on Garland because if you can generally stop Garland with how good he's been as of late, it's just one of those things where you kind of have to let everybody else kind of beat you.
I'm sure we'll get some of those Eric Reed, the other D Wade references tonight. Although I think he was told not to do that again, so he actually stopped it. The other topic of conversation today, and then we'll get to the picks, was Tyler Herro and this idea of the max for him. I think people are starting to get a sense for how expensive this team is going to be to keep ultimately, and so everybody should enjoy it right now because this is the point where before some of these players blow up a little bit, but. Tony, is there any case to be made at this stage, because Kevin Love is in the building tonight, is there any case to be made for anybody else getting not beating Tyler Herro for Sixth Man of the Year, but literally getting a vote.
No, there wasn't much of a case earlier in the season either. But I mean, I let people have their fun and show their impact metrics all over the place. But no, Tyler is absolutely dominating from that position and will continue to dominate, by the way, with Depot coming back and a starting lineup solidification. So,
whoa, hold on. Oh, Depot coming back into the starting lineup? Because that's not how.
And the starting lineup.
And,
okay. I was gonna. All right, I missed you there for a second. Go ahead. Johnny, I'm sorry.
I think that as this team goes down the stretch here, that their starters are going to put the bench in position to just go downhill and score. So I don't think Tyler's scoring opportunities are slowing down anytime soon. I don't think that anybody snatch. I mean, somebody might snatch a vote. Kevin might snatch a vote from a local writer, but it's not real. Like, no one else should get any votes.
And to that point, Ricky, I saw it tonight on NBA.com. I think they listed 6 Coach of the Year candidates, and Spo was not one of them, which I thought was interesting. Let's get to the picks tonight, though. Before we do want to mention PrizePicks.com. Use code 5 FIVE. Get your initial deposit matched. Make sure you're playing on there. I saw Tyler's number. I think it's achievable tonight. I thought PJ Tucker's number is achievable tonight, so take a look at a couple of those. Go to prizepicks.com. Also, go to our Off the Floor. We're posting exclusive content on there. You can find that on the 5 Reasons Twitter page. Pace and Space at halftime, post up 5R and 5 on the floor. I think, Greg, caffeine after the game. All right, Ricky. Make sure you're getting that. Ricky, tonight, what do you think? I think Ricky's frozen.
No, I'm not frozen. I was legit thinking about whether or not Miami actually beats them tonight, but
but you actually are frozen.
No, I know something's wrong with the camera. I don't know what's going on.
Sorry, I had to do it. Low hanging.
No, it's probably
let it go.
Somebody from the East is probably hacking me, but I digress. I think the Cavs are probably going to win tonight, but ultimately the Heat probably end up with the number 1 seed. I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't worry about the Cavs in the NBA playoffs. But right now, regular season, the way everything's set up, can Jimmy last 4 quarters without sneezing and missing the next 2 games? I don't know. But either way, that's me being petty. I apologize. Look, I think the Cavs are probably going to win tonight. Their size is probably going to be a problem for Bam. Victor is going to be a fun thing to watch tonight, but we're midway through March. There are bigger things on our plate right now than a regular season Cavs game. It's not going to translate to the playoffs, and if it does, then, well, ouch.
Brady?
Yeah, I think this is a Jimmy night. As I said before, I feel like they can get the switches. But the guy I'm watching in this matchup is Tyler Herro because it's one of those few teams that he's actually struggled with because they're so switchable. Them in Toronto, he actually had one at least decent game against Toronto. But Cleveland, he's had trouble with. They've just switched all lengthy defenders on him and basically said to themselves, we're going to make sure every possession Tyler is swarmed by our big guys. I just want to see how he responds. I want to see how maybe not how they scheme around it, but if he can kind of counter that in ways that maybe he can blow by for some of these guys and he can create advantages. Because I think that's the next step. Like we talk about all the coverages he can get by and the scoring outpours he's been doing as of late against top teams. But when he can kind of finish off the final counter of the thing that kind of bothers him most, I think that's probably the most important development from any player on this team going down the stretch.
Tony?
If Brady's right, it'll be really interesting to see how Depot creates as a playmaker coming off the bench and have a team being in a bonus or being in foul trouble. I think it's a big assist night for Victor Oladipo. He should be able to have some creation opportunities, especially if Tyler plays next to him. But yeah, this is a Heat win against a hurt Cavs team. One thing I did want to bring up, by the way, as Philly starts to tread water with the 12th easiest strength of schedule remaining, Boston has the 4th easiest strength of schedule, and everything that I thought about with seeding has dealt with Philly and Milwaukee being on the other side of the bracket. But if Boston starts to catch those two teams, we're going to really have to monitor that situation because you have to ask, who the hell do you want to play in this Eastern playoffs? I mean, it's a murderer's row.
Boston could that could happen. Boston could jump up. Greg, tonight?
I'm picking the Heat, but this is going to be a tough game. Lauri Markkanen's been really good lately. I think 17-6 in his last 9. Darius Garland, 3 straight double-doubles. They're no slouches over there. I think that they are also fighting for their own kind of getting right before the playoffs. So I think this is going to be a tough game, but I'm taking the Heat. Take Tyler Herro over 19.5 points on Prize Picks using the code 5, and take Duncan Robinson over 1.5 assists. He gets 2 assists every night now. That's automatic.
He does with the counters. I like the Heat tonight, actually. I don't know that I love him to cover. I think the number is 7.5 or 8. Here's why I like the Heat. Jimmy's better after rest. I don't think that sinus thing was all that serious. And Cleveland just spent 2 full nights in Miami. Literally got in here Wednesday, playing on Friday at 8 o'clock.
South Beach flu.
They'll feel that. There's a young team, too. I don't know that they're all that disciplined about this stuff. This is not the big three. That is not a bunch of married guys on this team. Not that always matters, but we'll see. I would like to think Miami has a better performance. I also know, in talking to some people inside the organization, they're pretty embarrassed about the other night. It's not that they lost, but just the overall effort and kind of the way that they let things go sideways. They have not had 2 of those in a row this year, where there's really, I would say, lost, but just not that they not that they didn't give the requisite effort. So I'm going to take Miami. Check out our sponsors, markbrownpa.com. Use the code. Well, there is no code. PrizePicks.com. Use the code 5. Biscayne Bay Brew. The code is give me a damn beer. Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, I don't have a choice though. So let's hope not for a while. Is this where you live though? No. Okay. Right. That's what I thought. I was trying to figure out. You were saying you're Snowbird. I thought that you were.
Well, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Coach, basically, I'm going to tonight. Place it's really tough to play without one of your all-stars. With that in mind, where does the attention?
I mean, it needs to be on being the best version of ourselves. Obviously we're playing a high-level competition. Bunch of guys individually scrap and get after you. Spo does a great job of game planning, for his opponents, making sure his teams are organized and structured and disciplined. So we're going to have our hands full. If we do the right things, we're confident our guys will go out and compete and give ourselves a chance. With them taking care of the basketball, your transition defense, how you work versus switches, all those things are going to be important. We got to make sure we pay attention to the details.
Let's say Darius having some attention on Evan, he's going to be guys out there on the course.
Well, it's the responsibility of those guys, right? Like they carry a certain weight and have to do certain things. As far as Darius and Evan go, but their job is to help their teammates also. And to simplify the game is if you ever find yourself with 2 on you, somebody's open, and you need to get the ball to the person that's open, and then continue to make those plays. And then those other guys are very capable. Lowry's capable of big nights. All of our guys have shown that when their number's called upon, they can go out and have big nights. So it'll be dictated by what the defense does. But we've got to find a way to take advantage of it.
After that, Jared was trying to play to each other as well. But that game, how does it grow? I guess is sort of find chemistry days and what they do.
It's different, obviously. The combination of Evan and Lowry at the 4-5. Evan's responsibilities are a little different on both sides of the ball. Shifts over to the 5, and then same for Lowry when he goes from the 3 to the 4. So this is something we've seen a little bit of, but it's still something that from the way it looks, there's going to be quite a bit of time for those guys to develop it. So, again, I think their skill sets complement one another. Lowry's ability to space the floor. Evan does have the ability to put on the rim and roll. And attack the paint, post the paint, all those things. So I think they help one another. But again, it's going to be something they continue to work on.
Does it help at all? I guess because Lowry and Evan do play next to each other when Jared is, using that line of chemistry a little bit already. Just not just shifting.
Yeah, no, their relationship is good. They understand each other's strengths and weaknesses. Again, it's just, systematically, there's small things that are different when you go from the 3 to the 4, the 4 to the 5, and then how do they do those things together? It just will take them a little bit of time to figure it out. But again, we're confident in their skill set, and it'll match with equipment.
Chris Fedor, Cleveland.com.
What's up, Chris?
Hey, what would it mean to you to win Coach of the Year?
I don't know. We'll talk about that 17 games now. I think what we do is try to pay attention to and live in what's going on right now and doing the job that we have to do. Being a coach is a difficult job. I know you and colleagues like to write about how easy it is, but it is difficult, and there's so much more to it than just X's and O's. The dynamics of personalities, the outside, embracing an environment and a fan base and trying to do all the right things. How much time and effort and season ticket holders, there's a lot that goes into this position and having to manage this position. Obviously it would be a great honor. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a kid, but it would be a great honor. It wouldn't be something just for me. It would be proof of what our guys are capable of and what our staff has been able to do as well.
Spo talks about you at the All-Star game. Talks about you before the relationship.
We go back a long, long time. David Fizdale and I have been close since I was 17. Fizz worked for Spo, in the video when they both were in the video room years and years ago. So I used to come out here a bunch and spend time with Fizz and spend time with Spo. I can remember when we were first in Charlotte, and it was our first or second year. He was here in Miami, and we would coach against each other in summer league. So we've always had a great relationship. Years ago.
You obviously are known so much for their culture. Were there things that you tried to emulate about Miami?
The environment overall, yes. Having to use my own personality and the things that I value, which are obviously we're different people, right? Starting with Pat Riley, like that influence. But having a true identity is something that, they haven't had for a long, long time. So that was something that, through my personality, our staff, our players, we wanted to implement that and have something that, you can say this is Cleveland Cavaliers basketball. I think that's what the Miami Heat have done an outstanding job of. And, personally, I don't know enough credit for the job that they've done. As a coach, you have a ton of respect for, you can put your eye on a Miami Heat player. You can watch a game and that's the Heat. And I think that's what we're aiming for. Not that I.
This is going to come out wrong. Don't make it critically at all. But why is there time?
Well, there's a process seeing specialists, and then as you go through the specialist, there's decisions that have to be made on the treatment, the rehab, and then it comes down a lot to the individual and how they heal. So it's kind of we have a frame, but to put a pinpoint on, I think it's really difficult. For the no.
John. Hey, what's going on, Coach?
What's up?
It's John Crowley.
Yeah, I see you standing right.
I was wondering why you guys.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's
Just asking about Mobley and just his growth that you've seen from the start of the season to now, and continuing as a rookie year candidate. What have you seen from him? I would say in the last couple of months since we've seen together.
A lot more of the same. I think what is, and I say this a lot about him, but what is unique is there is an emotional stability in him that you don't see a lot in young players. He doesn't do this. If he has a down quarter, somehow he figures out in the second quarter how to fix it. But all the stuff that he does is, how do I help my team win? Like, we've never had a conversation with him about, I need the ball more, I need this more, I need that more. He's just in the moment and goes and figures out what it's necessary to help the team win. And I think that's what, continues to impress us as teammates. And when you're around him every single day, you are amazed by a guy at that age, who has that mindset.
Coach, good to see you. It's Herro Spoelstra, equally complimentary of you and your team. You talked about that you built a defense that fits your talent. Could you talk about what he meant by that and how you match your defense and talent with that?
I mean, I think it comes down to, our size and the.
Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast. At Run, Podbean, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. We're also on Dash Radio on their Nothing But Net channel every single weeknight at 7 p.m. Also, check out 5 Reasons YouTube before Floor, an hour before every game. Post up 5 hours as soon as the game ends. And 5reasonsports.com, our no paywall site for all of your written content, including Brady Hawk's latest takeaways. Also, check out the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We talk about our product code here all the time. We're going to give it to you again. It's 5RSN. The product code is number 5RSN, and that gets you discounts all over the place. 2 of the places I'm going to feature today, therapistpreferred.com for all your premium CBD. You can get the tincture, the sports cream, the gummies. Again, you're not going to feel a drug, but it's going to help you sleep. It's going to help you recover. 25% off with the code 5RSN. And getsalis.com. That's GETSALIS.com. 10% off with code 5RSN. So getsalis.com. That's for endurance athletes, or just simply if you sweat. Okay, it's great stuff for you. Replace the electrolytes and healthy. Don't do it by pounding all that Gatorade and Powerade. Getsalis.com. 10% off. Therapistpreferred.com. 25% off. The product code is 5RSN. And now, tonight's episode.
Down the bitch gang. Yikes. 5 on the floor. Ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing. You can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars. Wearing bubble frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing. Got it all banned. Y'all seen the block. Stop with one hand. And Pat we trust. It's power have the guts. We here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, Ethan Skolnick back on 5 on the Floor. Here's tonight's floor plan. We're doing something for the first time, but we're going to do this once a week from now on, okay? We have been telling you about our new subscriber service called Off the Floor. It's $3.05 a month, even cheaper per month if you sign up for the entire year. And we're going back and forth with people on there. We're starting to do some replying to people who post things to us, but we're posting a lot of exclusive content there as well. You can find it through my Twitter page, 5 Reasons Sports. I keep pumping it out, as does Greg, as does Alex, as does Brady. And when you check it out on there, you will see we're asking for suggestions for episodes. So tonight is the first time we're going to take a suggestion for an episode. There were about 10 options that we actually were playing around with tonight. Some of them, I agree with Greg, who's with me tonight. You can follow him at Greg Vander. You can also follow Alex Toledo at Tropical Blanket. Some of the suggestions were a little bit of an overreaction, I thought, and we all thought, to what happened against Phoenix, which is, a bad loss at home to the best team in the league that you beat by 25 on the road not all that long ago without your full roster. So it's one game. I agree with our former co-host here, Alphonse Sidney, who tweeted this out today, that people have to stop treating NBA games like NFL games. There are 82 of them, not 17 of them. I almost said 16. And this would be like baseball fans who go freak out over, one MLB game. There's 162 of those. Actually, there's going to be 162 of those. I'm a little surprised that that's actually going to happen this year. But it's just the season is too long to get too focused on one game and to freak out about it. So we're going to continue looking ahead, talking about a team that is first in the Eastern Conference still, believe it or not, no matter what you're seeing on TNT tonight, no matter what you heard on ESPN today, or no matter what you saw on the floor at FTX Arena on Wednesday night, still best team in the Eastern Conference this year. And they're going to go to the playoffs, I promise you, okay? And what we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to take the suggestion from the floor. Who's the most important Heat player in each particular matchup? And we can only pick one, okay? So we don't want to debate 6 back and forth. We got to pick one for each matchup. Who's the guy who would make the biggest difference against that particular team? So Alex always gets upset at me for going him first and putting him on the spot. So I'm going to do this to Greg tonight. And let's start here. We're going to work our way up a little bit. Let's say that they draw the Brooklyn Nets in the first round, which is potential 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7. Who would be the most important member of the Miami Heat? And while we're doing this, Alex, I'm giving you Philadelphia next. Start thinking about it. Go ahead.
I hate the idea of the Brooklyn Nets in the first round. I'll just go on record as saying that. I know that the Heat can and would win that series, but I really hope that they would get the 7 spot in the play-in and deal with Milwaukee or Philly. So I start there, but most important player against Brooklyn for me, it's Bam Adebayo. I think that that is one of the series where you have the perfect mix of obviously his importance defensively, but I think it's one of the few series where really offensively he could flourish throughout a 7-game or 6-game series. So for me, I think this one's pretty easy, although I know you put me on the spot. I think it's a relatively quick decision in Bam Adebayo being the most important player in that matchup.
All right, Alex, the only thing you can do here is agree or disagree because I want you to start the conversation on Philadelphia. Is Bam the most important player against Brooklyn?
Absolutely. I think we all know how much he likes that matchup, and it's for a reason. Like that's one of those matchups where he has a lot of places you can go at offensively, and he has to take advantage, and that's probably the biggest key to being a team like that.
All right, I'm with you guys on this. I don't think there really is an argument for anybody else. You can talk about who's going to guard Durant or who's going to guard Kyrie, and obviously those would be issues depending again on where you're.
He'll be Bam.
Kyrie, it would probably be Bam in both cases, right? So, but it is Bam because that is the one clear advantage that the Heat should have in that series. We talk about Bam sometimes getting a little intimidated by the Jokic's of the world. Not intimidated by Andre Drummond at this stage, or not even Millsap anymore. LaMarcus Aldridge, I think he'll be just fine, and he needs a significant advantage there. He's also played with Durant. He played with him in the Olympics. He practiced against him. There's a comfort level there. Not that you can ever get too comfortable against Kevin Durant, but I feel like he'd be in pretty good shape. All right, I know how you love the Sixers, Alex. So go.
This is actually a tough one for me, but I'm gonna say Tyler Herro. I think this was a tough one because I can't decide on one guy. It's one of those things where I feel like the Heat are a team effort type of team. There's not one guy who I think specifically has to take advantage because I think you kind of know what you're gonna get from Jimmy in that series. And you kind of know what you're going to get from Bam, too. Like, I don't think that's a series where he dominates as a scorer as much as he does versus Brooklyn, like we were talking about. So I'm picking Tyler here because I think he's going to see plenty of minutes versus drop bigs, and that's a very nice, comfy place for him to play against. They're a good team, but I don't know. I see people on that team that you can go against when you talk about Harden, I think Shake Milton. I'm not really worried about their defense overall. I think that's a team that Tyler can get going against, and that's probably one of those series where you're going to need him to, I think, be one of your best players, and specifically, points per game type of way.
I hope we don't go chalk this whole podcast, but I agree with Alex. Drop killer all day, Tyler Herro. This is that series. As we're recording this podcast, James Harden is 3 for 15 in Philadelphia against his former Brooklyn Nets team. So let's just take a moment to laugh at that. I think it'd be a great opportunity for Tyler Herro to also prove that he's likely a better playoff option than James Harden in big games. So I love that idea as well. Alex touched on something that I think will be a recurring theme, and we shouldn't avoid it, but we won't stray too far, is that this really is a team that's going to require all the parts for it to get as far as they need to. But in a Philly matchup, Tyler Herro all day.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like the average Heat fan would have defaulted to Bam again.
Because he guards Embiid, right?
Right, because he guards Embiid primarily. And I can make a case for Jimmy here. Because here's the thing about Jimmy. Jimmy ain't afraid of that team. We talk about Milwaukee. But obviously he knows that team, or he knows a couple of the core guys on it. He knows how to get in their heads a little bit. And I do feel like Jimmy would have a big series against them. He has played exceptionally well against them since he left. It's interesting. I don't know if you saw the quote, but I forgot. I don't know who quoted him on this, but he was asked. It was a Chicago reporter posted today about his former teams, and he was basically saying he likes getting booed, by the crowds of former teams, except Chicago. He still has love for Chicago, but his numbers against Chicago, Philadelphia, and Minnesota are insane. Those are three teams he's played arguably the best against. That one game, the game in Minnesota, was not great, but he's typically played really well against them. So I might have defaulted to Jimmy, but I'm saying Tyler also. I think Tyler's the one I don't really think they have an answer for, and also their bench is thin. And so Tyler coming off the bench with Oladipo, you can throw Vic in here maybe also as well. I think that would be the element that turns this in a series. So we're all going Bam. We're all going Tyler.
Kyle was my second for this one, just to be clear. That was the other one I was going back and forth with, because I think Kyle could step up in the series too.
Sure. Oh,
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if Kyle comes up in any of these. All right, we're gonna get to the next one. I'm gonna go. So here, Alex, you're gonna get Milwaukee, and we're gonna go with. Let's see. We're gonna go with Boston for Greg. So give us some thought before we do. We're talking here about Heat culture. Want to talk about culture? U-Brake Wheel Fix is the wheel repair, refinish, and custom wheel specialist. They offer the big three of all your car wheel needs with over 20 years of experience. U-Brake Wheel Fix repairs damaged wheels from curb rash, cracks, or bends, all under one roof with in-house powder coating, CNC machining, and polishing. They also offer new custom wheels and tires from your favorite brands, such as Vossen, Fuel Off-Road, just to name a couple. They now even offer no credit check financing up to $5,000 for a new set of wheels. Fast turnaround times on all repairs. They even provide the loan wheels in many cases. U-Brake Wheel Fix is your total automotive wheel solution located in North Miami, right off Biscayne and Northeast 146th Street. Check out all the great work across social media from Instagram to Facebook. It's at U-Brake Wheel Fix, or online at ubrakewheelfix.com, or reach out to Mark, big Miami sports fan, 305-748-0112. That's 305-748-0112. Mention 5 reasons. You will get a discount. U-Brake Wheel Fix, changing the way that you see wheels. And you can still get the Vice colors there if you want. I don't know if they can do a mashup, but certainly ask them when you get there. And this is one of the companies that we have sent people to, and they've come back with great reviews. Okay. So I'm just telling you, they've been with us for a long time. Check them out. All right. We got Milwaukee. We've got Boston. Alex, Milwaukee, go.
I'm glad that you went to break there, because I went back and forth between 3 different answers at that point. There was three times I'm like, okay, this is my answer. But my final answer on this is actually Kyle. And he was the third one. Like I said, I went back and forth between others before. I just think Kyle is let's just go to the most obvious point first. The biggest difference on the roster between this season and last season, when you look at the Bucks and Heat matchup, right? So that's the most clear and obvious thing to point out. And I think it's a huge reason here, because I think, like we talked about before, a lot of people might point to Bam here, and I wouldn't, I don't really disagree with that. But to me, Kyle is a huge part of that. I think getting Bam spots that are advantageous to him, because it's not just going to be about him hitting mid-range shots or whatever like it was last season. I don't expect it to play out that exact same way. I think it's just going to be about being able to take advantage of whatever openings and spots that Bucks defense gives you. And Lowry is the fastest processor on the team. A team that doesn't really allow people to get to the rim, just like the Heat, just like the Suns. It's going to be tough for Jimmy to score. We already know that. Bam is not going to be able to just get the ball and make stuff happen versus them. Like, that's not really what I see happening. I see Kyle having to put guys in spots to step up. And I think if the Bucks stay as a drop team like they have this season, they kind of mixed it up last season, but without Brook, I think they've kind of just stuck to what they have been. I think that's another matchup where Kyle could step up in. Like, I think I wouldn't be surprised if he gets others switched on to him, but in general, this is one where I think his way that he plays with pace, the way that he is kind of the fastest processor on the team, this is one where you're going to need him to get you as many of those easy layups as you can, whether in the half court or in transition.
That's a really good point. I hadn't considered the easy bucket component against Milwaukee and what Kyle can do to influence that. I think that's really interesting because to me, and I'll reference a conversation I had with Nekias Duncan when I was in Charlotte covering the game. We talked about the Milwaukee matchup just, offhand. And I was like, is it basically because they've figured out Jimmy to a degree that Bam has to dominate? And he's like, no, I think it's more the shooters. So I think that lends itself to what you're talking about with Kyle, but also Tyler and Duncan. So it's difficult for me. I almost think that because of the way they play the drop and because Brook Lopez is not there, this one's Tyler Herro also. But we can't hide from, and I know that I'm going in a lot of directions, but we need to acknowledge it. Like, doesn't Jimmy Butler have to figure out this Milwaukee Bucks matchup? Like, isn't it incumbent on him to figure that out at some level? And are you going to beat Milwaukee with Jimmy being like meh? I don't know. So that's why this one is a really difficult one. Break the tie, Ethan.
Yeah, I think it's difficult, but I'm not going to break your tie because I'm going in a completely different direction with a name you haven't mentioned. But I will say you're right that Jimmy is going to have to break through it. But I think we've kind of given up hope on that to a certain degree. I mean, his numbers. I went through it. It's not just a this year thing or a last playoffs thing. He has not played well against the Bucks historically. Okay, it's his worst numbers of his career are against Milwaukee, and that does not include the last playoff series. So even if you look at the Heat Bucks series that year, it really wasn't him. It was really like Jay Crowder and others who made a huge difference in that series. It was more him against Boston. It was more him against the Lakers. But it wasn't necessarily him, and more him against Indiana. It wasn't necessarily him against Milwaukee. I'm going to go completely off the board because to me, the key swing player in this matchup, and the one I think that Milwaukee Bucks will be regretting letting go, is PJ Tucker. He is the difference between what they were last year and what they are this year. Again, assume Brook is back. I think it forces Portis to play more. I think the more Portis you get in a playoff series, I actually think is better for Miami. I know how he's played against the Heat over the years. But I feel like he can be controlled to a certain degree. There are certain things he does not do defensively, and he's going to be on the court more because Tucker is not. And also, PJ Tucker, we know how well Bam guards Giannis, but he doesn't have to all the time now because PJ Tucker is going to do a lot of it. PJ Tucker also can guard Drew on switches. He can guard Middleton if Butler needs a break. I'm going off the board completely here, and I'm going with PJ Tucker. Greg, Boston.
Well, Milwaukee was clear as mud, so I guess Boston will be similar. Truthfully, I think this is also a Jimmy Butler series. I think that Boston's been really, really good. Like, let's also I don't think we've talked enough about in terms of contenders that could give Miami problems. Be acknowledging a little bit more after Milwaukee, but just with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, it's a series where you can't have a subpar Jimmy Butler. I just feel like that's the guy to go to there. There may be some X's and O's stuff where it could be proven and moved off my position, but I'm saying Jimmy.
Alex?
So I think I agree with everything Leif said there. Like, I think this would be a really tough matchup for the Heat. I said on Twitter a while back that I think this would be a tougher matchup for the Heat now than it was in the bubble. I don't know if I've said that on here, but I just think without Kemba there to constantly pick on, without Daniel Tice being their biggest center, a team that constantly switches everything. They've got size, constantly playing 2 6'11" guys, playing Grant Williams at the 3, and it's working out. He's hitting threes. They're an elite defense. I just think it's going to be one of those series where it's really ugly, and every game is one to grind it and win. Who is the guy to do that? It's Jimmy Butler. So he's got to be at the top of his game. I agree. He's got to, get to the line as much as he can versus them and take advantage of any smaller guy that gets switched onto him, even if it's strong defenders like Derek White. It's just going to be one where he has to be at the top of his game for them to beat them.
I'm with you guys on this one. I know people may point to Herro because he had the huge game, the snarl against them and all that, but I don't think it's necessarily Tyler here. The other guy that I would consider, and maybe I will push this direction, is I might go Kyle here. And the reason I might go Kyle here is because if there's one advantage that the Heat should have in this series, it's at the point guard position. Good point. They don't really have a true point guard in Boston. They're going essentially with all wings. And, Marcus Smart, Derek White, I mean, these are guys that Kyle Lowry, with his experience, should be able to take advantage of in a playoff series. Also, there'll probably be a flopping contest between Lowry and Smart, so Miami has to win that. I'm going to – if there's one series that I think Kyle Lowry – and look, we saw it. I mean, we saw a classic Boston-Toronto series and the way Kyle played in that series. I'm going to go with Kyle on this one. All right, we're going to do rapid fire with the next, okay? No long answers on it. Just team, player, first one that comes to your mind, okay? Because we've got a few teams left to handle here in the Eastern Conference. We've covered 4 of them already. Before we do, I want to tell you about another local sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. This one is based in Boca Raton, but it can serve the entire area as well, and it's water cleanup, okay? If you're a South Florida property owner and you got an insurance claim, you might be dealing with water, mold, or fire damage. You got to find a reputable, fully licensed, insurance certified contractor. Water Cleanup of Florida is here for you 24 hours a day. So when a disaster strikes in your home or business, you need specialized, fast, and reliable services. Water Cleanup of Florida understands the impact and stress that an unexpected disaster may cause. With over 60 years of combined experience, Michael, Robert, and their team prepare to handle any size disaster. These guys are third-generation contractors in South Florida. They want to maintain their sterling reputation. They will take care of you to make the process painless and hassle-free. So reach out to them for a one-stop shop that busy homeowners and business owners require. No need to bring in other contractors, okay? Call Michael at 954-579-0356. That's 954-579-0356. Check him out on Instagram also at Water Cleanup of Florida, because if you've got the schmutz,
they got the guts.
All right. Do we have the guts to blitz through this thing? Okay. We got some other teams in the Eastern Conference. Greg, Chicago Bulls.
Jimmy Butler.
Alex, Charlotte Hornets.
Oh, man. Bam. They're too small for him.
Greg, Toronto Raptors.
Kyle Lowry.
I think you got to go there. Alex.
How could I say anyone else?
Alex, Atlanta Hawks.
Just start laughing and let's go to the next one. Hey, James Harden's 3 for 16 now. Huh?
He doesn't have the guts. He just has the schmutz. Have a good night, everybody.
Is that the Bible verse? James 3:16.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.